Hey, welcome back, listeners, to Off Over 50 and Fired. Now what with Linda
and Shelley.
So, Shelley, in our last episode, we gave the listeners our 5 key tips to how to really effectively use those online job boards. And this week, we're going to be starting our series on interviewing.
Yeah, but Linda, first, we need to start with our wine recommendation.
So, Shelley, I know technically that the fall season has started, but I was just wondering, can I just have one last white wine recommendation?
No.
Pretty please?
No. I guess so. I guess I did 23 recommendations last time, right, for the first season.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, my good friend.
You're welcome.
I'm going to have this last recommendation actually is going to be in honor of Janet, one of our listeners, who really likes a good Pinot Grigio. And this Pinot Grigio is from Santa Margherita Vineyards in Italy. And it's a dry white wine that still has that fruity taste that I really like. And it's very appropriate for the fall season because it tastes like golden delicious apples.
I love that wine recommendation, Linda. It's so nice. You talk about pairings and everything else when I just say it's freaking good red wine. Drink it.
So, should we prepare for part 1 of interviewing? Talking about preparing for the interview.
So, Linda, it's really important that you make sure that we get our stories together, right, and ready. And a great approach to pull these stories together is one of them is leveraging STAR, which is really about talking about the situation. So, on your interview, you talk about a situation, a particular thing that was occurring for you, the task at hand, the action that you did, to uncover the challenge or whatever, and then finally what the results were.
Right. And I think one of the things that you want to do for the STAR is you want to get examples that show a situation where there was a huge challenge, right? And that you could actually have a result coming from that challenge. So you want something that was a challenge. You may want to take something that went well or something that you did from a strategic perspective. So look at all the different ways that you can look at STAR to show, different parts of how you can tackle problems and or move an organization forward, right? So just don't think about one good story. Think about them from different dimensions and have one ready and in your back pocket for your interview. Because you never know, right?
No, it's a very good suggestion. You should have yourself be ready for any type of question that might come up.
So once you've got your STAR story sort of set and you want to start, start reaching out, one of the things that you should be prepared to do is for every resume that you've submitted in or every company that you're targeting, you should know the basics about them. You should know basic facts about the company, their annual sales, stock history if they're public, how long they've been in business. You should go online because you can easily find their vision and mission statements, get a sense of what the culture is like. And you have to understand, are you going to fit in that culture or do you have to sort of prepare something different in your interviews to show that you're kind of aligned with the culture and the values that the company has.
Yeah, and that's also just a really nice way to be able to talk about, when you're going in and you interview and you thank them then and you say, my values are very much aligned with what, your organization's about, which is really cool.
Yeah, and to that point, Shelley, when you do that, you should be looking for those connections, like for the people that you're going to be interviewing with, right? So a great way to find out some background on the people that you're going to be interviewing with and making those connections.
Yeah, you're right. And that's something I don't do, Linda, and I think you do a really good job of, which is like leveraging LinkedIn and looking at their profile and going to the internet and just understanding a little bit more about them so that you can just have also a conversation and it's not just about job, specific tasks, but maybe something a little bit more personal or you might have in common. And I don't do it, and you really need to because I know you do.
It's a nice for a little icebreaker before you actually get into the meat of the role or the position or whatever you're going to be talking about. And then the other thing is that as you prepare for these interviews, you kind of have to understand the goal of it because not all interviews are going to be job position related. There may be things where you've done some networking and done some connections and or you've been introduced to someone and they're going to be interviewing with no position in mind. So those are kind of two different kinds of interviews that are going to go on. You have to be prepared for both. So the job position, it's all about the job, and you have to make sure that you're showing yourself as the right person for that job or that role. If it's a connection or an introduction or something where you're trying to get into a company, maybe trying to create a role within that country, that's a different approach that you may have to take, right? Mm-hmm. So just kind of understand how you want to prepare for that, whether it's a job related one where there's a posting for, or whether or not it's just a networking or connection.
Right. And the way you prepare for that too is, when you think about the interview, it could be a virtual, right? So you could be doing it, on the phone or versus video conferencing versus in person, right? So there's 3 different ways to bring an interview to life, and no matter what, each way you should really kind of just like in person, you want to make sure that you're prepared for it. You want to make sure, like Linda said, you understand all the things about the company background, whatever, but you also want to make sure you've got your directions so you know how to get there. You want to make sure that you're dressed, appropriately, and sometimes, an organization, they might be all casual dress, but you might not want to just go in casually. You might want to, be a little bit more snappier, and then for virtual, you want to just make sure that you can log in ahead of time and that you've got connectivity, because there's nothing worse than when if you don't do it beforehand and try it, and then you can't get in, and then you can't have your interview, right? So you want to make sure you're testing the link and that your camera angle, everything looks good because it's your one shot. Your first impression really matters. So you have to make sure it's all working right.
Yeah. And whether you're doing it in person or virtually, you have to make sure that you're not going to have anything that would disrupt the interview. Like make sure that your phone is silenced, whether in person or virtual. And then if it's virtual, there's even more things that could interfere with the interview. Someone could walk in, one of your family members, or if you have animals or pets or things like that. So just make sure that you kind of think that through, and maybe your home may not be the best environment to actually have your interview. You might want to go somewhere else.
Right. Or you might want to just say, you put your cats or whatever, just in the other room for a little while, because if you've got one like me who likes to talk a lot, you might not want him saying more on the interview than you do.
That's right. And Shelley's cats can be quite talkative.
Yes, Vinny likes to talk.
So the other thing that you want to make sure is that you take the time to prepare and practice answering some very typical interview questions. And you should brainstorm a bunch of them. You should probably get a colleague or someone else and try to come up with what are some questions that may be asked. So, and know which ones may be more appropriate for that interview or that position or that level. So you shouldn't just go in there cold, not thinking of answers to certain questions. So one of the very typical ones that you're going to get is like, what's been your biggest challenge and how have you addressed it? So besides that one, a typical one I always get is, why are you right for this position? Or why are you after this role? You should absolutely be ready to answer anything about why you want this role.
And another thing which is really interesting, Linda, that I've been getting lately is, because I'm trying to look in different industries, it's like, why do you think your skill set's going to apply to this industry? Like, and being able to explain to somebody, I'm looking for a different challenge. I think my skill set can be anywhere, but it's also nice to be prepared to say, if I'm going outside of my normal industry, be prepared to answer it, why it would be exciting or challenging.
Right. And then another one that I've been finding, that especially in the screening process, a lot of people ask about what would be your optimal role. Right? They're trying to understand like how that fits in with the role that they have. So things like that, like think through, brainstorm with some people and really have a list of questions and be prepared to answer them. And then the other is be prepared to ask questions to the person, that if they say to you, do you have any questions? Don't stumble or try to find something. Already have a list prepared. So they feel as if you are interested in this position and you want to know more.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a very good suggestion. And then the other thing too is, you should focus in on how you can understand how you can help them, right? Not just about what you'll get from the position, but how your skill set can make, help address some of the challenges that they're facing.
And then I think one of the other things that you want to make sure that you walk away with is being prepared to answer what's going to differentiate you from other candidates. Is there something very unique that most other candidates will not have? Some sort of experience and or education or some certification or exposure to certain things in industry or people or connections. So understand what is that you can bring that maybe no one else can bring. And you may also think about things that have made you very successful in other positions, like, your leadership style, the way that you collaborate, like bring up examples of things that really show that you can lead others and that you can be successful in an organization.
Absolutely. And I think, Linda, to that point, it's how you really take advantage of your experience. Because we talk about the fact that, a lot of times people think we're overqualified, but that's an advantage for you because you can come in, we can go in and hit the ground running because we know how to do things. So if I want to talk about, I'm a great capability builder. I like to do that. I can create a vision. I can create the roadmap, and I can show you how we need to implement something in 1 to 5 years. So how do we take advantage of our experience and not have it be a negative aspect?
Right. I think you need to bring that to the front, that sometimes experience can help you get through difficult situations or different problems that a company may be facing. Like, for example, I have a lot of experience with organizational effectiveness and change management. And that's usually one of the toughest things is for people who are trying to move their company in another direction or trying to get to the next level. One of the things is change management. And how do you, in the organization, deal with that and be successful with the things that you want to implement? So you've got to find those kinds of things that are really differentiating and bring that to the table in the screening, in the interviews, and it certainly should be reflective in your resume.
Right. And I think you also need to just let folks know that, again, taking advantage of your experience in terms of being able to mentor folks, and really help build the internal organization based on your experience. So why shy away from that, and let it shine. We don't let our stuff shine enough, and we need to learn how to do that.
Right. They should be seeing the experience that we have 20 plus years as an advantage for the company, and that people within who they may want to groom and bring up in the company, having exposure to people with our kind of experience is going to make them more successful executives.
Tap into this wealth of knowledge that we all have gained over the years that we've all been out in the marketplace.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing too is, one of the other questions is, why do you want this company, this job or this company? So you really need to make sure, like I had just mentioned earlier, if it's a different industry, why do you want to get into it? So make sure you're prepared to answer that question.
Right. So I think one of the most important things is to think through all the potential questions that they may ask you, be prepared to really understand and answer questions about the role that they've put out there. And then for yourself, are you prepared also to ask them questions? Because that really shows interest. So it really comes, down to this whole area of preparation for me is understanding all those questions on both sides, right? And the more you prepare, the more you're going to execute flawlessly, right?
Very true.
So in our next episode, where are we headed towards?
We're going to talk about techniques and consideration when executing your interviews.
So when the rubber hits the road, when you actually get in and you actually have a chance to talk to the people who either have the position and or potential opportunity.
Right. So once you get past the screener.
So as always, you can find any of the details regarding the resources referred to and, of course, our wine recommendations,
which are now both red and white,
by going to our website, www.over50andfire.com. And you can always give us your feedback and stories.
Yeah, and I think it'll be really important if you guys know any other pointers or you've used different techniques, during the initial phases of interviewing, please make sure that you're sending them along because we'd love to share them.
Right. And you can do that by going onto our website and clicking on Contact Us or emailing us at offnowwhat@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Bye.